You meet someone who seems to see straight into you from the very first conversation. Their words land with perfect timing. Their smile feels warm and knowing. And for a brief moment, the world feels a little less lonely. You let them in. But time passes. The surface begins to shift, and the person you thought you understood starts to reveal cracks you never noticed in the beginning. You look back and wonder how you missed the quiet signals that were there all along. If that ache feels familiar, if you've ever paid a real price for trusting the first impression too quickly, stay with me. The later parts of this video go deeper than the surface ever could. The patterns I want to share with you today are the kind that settle into your bones and change how you move through the world. If this resonates even a little, I hope you'll stay until the end. Welcome back to Guiguzi Strategic Wisdom. I'm David Welbeck, the writer behind this video. Let me speak to you plainly. The way one person speaks to another after enough years have passed to know the difference between what people show and what they truly are. Reading people well does not come from first impressions. It comes from experience. The slow, sometimes painful accumulation of watching how someone behaves when the spotlight fades, when pressure builds, when nothing is immediately at stake, and when silence stretches long enough to reveal what lies underneath. The spirit of that ancient strategist reminds us that appearances are the easiest mask. True character shows itself in the spaces between performances, in the moments no one is clapping. Today, we are going to walk through 5 signs that only experience can teach you. Not 5 rules, 5 hidden patterns in human nature that most of us overlook until the cost has already been paid. These are not theories I read in a book. They are lessons carved out of real relationships, real disappointments, and real quiet victories in my own life. Each one has saved me more than once. Each one still teaches me something new. The first sign appears in how a person handles delay. The impatient reveal themselves the moment the path stops being smooth. You notice it in the small things at first. A reply that turns sharp when something takes longer than expected. A promise that quietly evaporates when the reward is no longer immediate. Or the way warmth cools the instant they realize you cannot deliver what they want right now. In the spirit of strategic wisdom, the wise watch the current beneath the still water. In our modern lives, that current shows itself when time itself becomes the test. A person who seems generous and fully present on day 1 may grow restless by week 6. Their composure does not break because of open conflict. It breaks because waiting forces them to sit alone with their own unchecked desires. Psychologically, every one of us carries an instinct to move toward reward and away from discomfort. First impressions hide this instinct behind charm and attentiveness. Experience forces the instinct into plain view. When someone cannot wait without resentment, they are not merely showing you poor manners. They are showing you exactly where their self-control ends and where their hidden agenda begins. Think about the colleague who befriends you quickly in the middle of a demanding project. They are full of ideas, encouragement, and late-night conversations that make you feel truly seen. You invest time and energy because the connection feels real. Then the project drags on for months. Deadlines shift. Resources run thin. Suddenly, the encouragement turns into subtle pressure, then polite distance. You realize their interest was never in you as a person. It was in the fast outcome you represented for them. This is where most people get it wrong. They blame themselves for being too slow or not exciting enough. The real question is not whether you were enough. The real question is whether their patience was ever real in the first place. The consequence of ignoring this sign is a quiet kind of betrayal. You pour months, sometimes years, one of trust and effort, into someone whose loyalty was only as deep as the next convenient opportunity. One day you wake up realizing you have been carrying a relationship that was never mutual, just convenient for them while it lasted. Look at reality for what it is. Patience under delay is not a personality trait. It is a measure of inner discipline. Those who have it protect what matters over time. Those who do not will always choose the shorter path, even if it means walking over you to get there. That brings us to the second sign. It is quieter, almost invisible at first. It lives in the small consistencies that no one ever claps for. A person can perform sincerity beautifully in public. They can look you in the eye, speak moving words, and make you feel understood in a single afternoon. But experience teaches you to watch what they do when the moment is ordinary, when no audience is keeping score. Do they follow through on the small promise made in passing? Do they remember the detail you mentioned once, not because it benefits them, but simply because it mattered to you? This is not about perfection. Mature people forget things too. But the pattern of small, repeated follow-through reveals something deeper. Whether their inner life actually matches the face they show the world. Human instinct loves the dramatic gesture. It feels good to believe in grand declarations of loyalty or friendship. Yet the psychology underneath is straightforward. Real character is built in the unseen repetitions. First impressions give you the grand declaration. Time gives you the daily proof, or the daily contradiction. I remember a person I once called a close friend during one of the hardest seasons of my life. We had met through shared work, and in the beginning she was steady, thoughtful, always available for a long conversation over coffee in the small cafe near the office. She spoke often about standing by people through hard times. For almost a year, I believed every word. Then life grew quieter. My situation slowly stabilized. The drama of the crisis faded, and just as slowly, the texts stopped coming. The check-ins vanished. There was no dramatic fight, just the soft drift of someone whose interest had always been tied to the intensity of the moment. When there was no longer a crisis to bond over, there was no bond left. That experience taught me something I have never forgotten. The real question is not whether someone can rise to the occasion. The real question is whether they can remain steady when the occasion is gone. If you let instinct and naivety guide you here, you trade years of quiet loyalty for months of loud performance. You end up lonely in a different way, surrounded by people who only show up when the spotlight is shining. This is where experience draws the line between performance and presence. Fake people perform connection. Those who know how to wait build it, one small, unseen choice at a time. We are only at the beginning of these patterns, but already they start to connect. If you are feeling the weight of any of this, stay with me. The next 3 signs move into even more personal territory. Into the moments where ego, desire, and pressure reveal what first impressions could never show. The third sign surfaces the moment you reveal a genuine weakness, or, just as telling, the moment you achieve a real success. Watch carefully. The instant you lower your guard, perhaps you share a fear, a past failure, or a moment of honest doubt, the true nature of the relationship begins to show itself. Some people lean in with steady curiosity and no hidden calculation. Others see an opening. They may offer advice that somehow centers their own experience, or they quietly store the information like currency to be used later. The same test works in reverse. When good fortune comes your way, a promotion, recognition, a personal breakthrough, watch how they respond. Genuine warmth celebrates with you without measuring their own position against yours. The other kind smiles while quietly recalculating how this shift changes the balance of power between you. The instinct here is ancient. Human beings are wired for social comparison. First impressions mask it behind politeness and shared laughter. Experience strips the mask away. When your vulnerability or your rise disturbs their inner balance, you see the calculation they were hiding from the very beginning. In family life, this sign can cut especially deep. A parent who once seemed endlessly supportive suddenly becomes competitive the moment a child begins to outgrow them. A sibling who cheered your early struggles grows distant the moment your life starts to flourish. The performance of love stays intact, but the quiet resentment leaks through in small remarks, forgotten birthdays, or the way every conversation somehow circles back to their own unmet needs. The consequence of misreading this sign is a gradual erosion of yourself. You keep giving trust to someone who is secretly keeping score. Over time, you lose pieces of your own life trying to manage their discomfort with your honesty or your growth. You become smaller so they can stay comfortable. Do you see the turning point here? Experience does not ask you to become suspicious of every warm smile. It simply asks you to stop confusing performance with presence. The person who can sit with your weakness without exploiting it and stand beside your success without diminishing it. That is the rare one whose character is not built on comparison. The fourth sign reveals itself in the moment of temptation or ambition. A person can speak with real eloquence about values, discipline, and loyalty. They can quote the right principles and nod at the importance of integrity, but place them in front of a genuine opportunity, money, status, a hidden desire, and watch what actually bends. The test is not whether they feel the pull. Every one of us does. The test is whether they restrain the pull when no one would ever know. In the spirit of strategic wisdom, self-mastery is the foundation of all true strategy. Without it, cleverness is only a mask worn by desire. In modern life, temptation rarely arrives with trumpets. It arrives quietly, an off-the-record favor at work that would quietly undermine a colleague, a flirtation that could cross a line in marriage, or a shortcut in business that would betray someone who trusts you completely. The psychology here is ancient and unflinching. Desire lives in every human heart. First impressions let us believe the person has already conquered it. Experience shows whether they have mastered it or whether they simply had not yet been tested in the right way. I once watched this unfold in a business partnership that began with tremendous promise. My associate and I had worked side by side for nearly 2 years, building something meaningful. She spoke often of integrity and long-term vision, and I believed her because her actions matched her words in the early days. Then a larger competitor made her a subtle side arrangement that would have undercut our own project. It was quiet enough that I might never have discovered it. She hesitated for only a few days, but the hesitation itself told me everything. Her ambition had always been stronger than her restraint. The cost was the slow death of trust. We continued working together for a while longer, but something essential had shifted. I could no longer share the deeper layers of strategy with her. The relationship became surface level, polite, and ultimately empty. Letting ego or naivety overlook this sign leaves you exposed at the exact moment when loyalty matters most. You discover too late that their self-control was conditional, tied to conditions that eventually changed. The wise person does not demand perfection. They simply note where restraint ends. That boundary is more honest than any speech ever given. We have arrived at the fifth and perhaps most revealing sign. It appears in the space of silence and loss. When everything is going well, masks are easy to maintain. But when pressure becomes heavy, when plans collapse, when reputation takes a hit, when time itself seems to turn against them, true character steps forward without invitation. Some people grow clearer, more measured, even kinder in defeat. Others unravel into blame, manipulation, or sudden coldness. This is the ultimate teacher. Human instinct under loss is to protect the self at all costs. First impressions never show you how someone protects themselves when the world is no longer watching. Experience does. In relationships, this sign can feel like a quiet earthquake. A partner who seemed steady and affectionate grows distant or accusatory the moment life becomes difficult. A friend who once celebrated your wins suddenly disappears when your own path grows rocky. Not with explanation, but with the soft withdrawal of someone whose investment was always tied to your upward trajectory. The consequence is one of the heaviest we carry. The slow realization that you built closeness with someone who could not stand beside you when the lights went out. You lose not only the relationship, but a piece of your own faith in people. This is where most people get it wrong. They keep hoping the next impressive first impression will finally be the real one. Experience teaches something gentler and harder at the same time. The people worth keeping are the ones who remain clear-minded when silence falls and when fortune turns. We have moved now from philosophy into the lived texture of our days, into the quiet hours of marriage where one person waits while the other drifts, into the long corridors of work where loyalty is tested not by grand gestures, but by small, unseen choices under pressure, into the slow evenings of family life where old resentments surface once the spotlight of achievement fades, into the private ache of realizing you misjudged someone you once loved, the trade-offs you made trying to hold on, and the loneliness that arrives not because you were too guarded, but because you mistook performance for sincerity for too long. Time reveals what ambition hides. Relationships expose what charm conceals. Social pressure tests what discipline was never truly there. Betrayal does not always arrive with shouting. Sometimes it arrives as a slow drift, a forgotten promise, or the quiet decision to choose self-interest when no one is looking. And so we come to the heart of the matter. What truly reveals a fake person? Not the first warm smile, not the confident words spoken in the glow of early connection. It is the pattern that emerges when time, pressure, silence, temptation, and loss strip away the performance. The fake person changes with the weather of advantage. The real one remains recognizable in every season. Why do so many of us mistake performance for sincerity? Because we are human. We want connection quickly. We want to believe the best, because the world already feels hard enough. We want the story to feel complete in the first chapter. Experience alone cures that longing by showing us the full length of the book. The mature person is not a saint, not perfect, not without scars or mistakes of their own. The mature person is simply someone who has learned what matters, what to protect, what to release, when to wait, and when to act. They do not close their heart, but they no longer hand it over at the first warm glance. They watch, they remember, they judge by the current beneath the surface. That is the quiet power experience gives you. Thank you for staying with me until the end. These truths do not arrive easily, but once they settle, they become the quiet compass you carry into every room, every conversation, every decision that matters. We have moved now from philosophy into the lived texture of our days. The quiet hours of marriage where one person waits patiently, while the other drifts toward whatever feels easier in the moment. The long corridors of work where loyalty is tested not by grand speeches, but by small, unseen choices made under deadline pressure. The slow evenings of family life where old resentments surface once the spotlight of shared achievement fades. The private ache of realizing you misjudged someone you once loved. The trade-offs you accepted trying to hold on, and the loneliness that arrives not because you were too guarded, but because you mistook performance for sincerity for far too long. Time reveals what ambition hides. Relationships expose what charm conceals. Social pressure tests what discipline was never truly there. Betrayal does not always arrive with shouting or confrontation. Sometimes it arrives as a slow drift, a forgotten promise, or the quiet decision to choose self-interest when no one is looking. You lose not just the relationship, but pieces of your own clarity. Moments where you second-guess your judgment, where you wonder if you gave too much or held back too little. And so we come to the heart of the matter. What truly reveals a fake person? Not the first warm smile, not the confident words spoken in the glow of early connection. It is the pattern that emerges when time, pressure, silence, temptation, and loss strip away the performance. The fake person changes with the weather of advantage. The real one remains recognizable in every season. What should a wise person actually watch for? Not perfection in others, because none of us offers that, but consistency when nothing is immediately gained, composure when delay tests desire, steadiness when your own success or struggle shifts the balance, and clarity when silence falls and the easy path calls. Why do so many of us mistake performance for sincerity? Because we are human. We want connection quickly. We want to believe the best, because the world already feels hard enough on its own. We want the story to feel complete in the first chapter, the warmth to be real from the first glance. Experience alone cures that longing by showing us the full length of the book, chapter after chapter, season after season, until we learn to read the current beneath the surface rather than the reflection on top. The mature person is not a saint, not perfect, not without scars or mistakes of their own. The mature person is simply someone who has learned what matters, what to protect, what to release, when to wait, and when to act. They do not close their heart to the world, but they no longer hand it over at the first warm glance. They watch without suspicion. They remember without resentment. They judge by the current beneath the surface, not the waves on top. They know the cost of misjudging someone, and they accept that cost as part of becoming clearer. They protect their peace not by shutting people out, but by refusing to ignore the patterns that experience has already shown them. That is the quiet power experience gives you. It does not make life simpler. It makes you steadier inside it. Thank you for staying with me until the end. These conversations only matter when someone like you chooses to walk through them fully, letting the words settle into the places where real decisions are made. I'm David Welbeck, the writer behind these videos on Guiguzi strategic wisdom. I'll see you in the next one. If something in today's reflection moved you or helped you see a past situation in a new light, I invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video with someone who might need these insights. Perhaps a friend navigating a difficult relationship, a colleague at a turning point in their career, or a family member learning the difference between charm and character. And if you feel called to, leave a comment below about your own experience with first impressions versus the slow truth of time. Your stories remind all of us that we are not alone in learning these quiet laws of human nature. Until next time, stay observant, stay patient, and above all, stay clear-minded.